Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 9. It's called Final Mission. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. This one sees another sort of stranded couple of characters on a planet needing help. We've seen episodes like this before in Star Trek, even in Next Generation, I'm sure we've seen it before. But in particular, it's Picard and Wesley this time, along with a sort of guest star. Meanwhile, the Enterprise is dealing with a crisis elsewhere, so even once they know that there's something up and they might be in trouble, they can't just drop what they're doing and go and look for them. So it's kind of a survive in the desert, looking for water, that kind of thing. Mainly another bonding episode between Picard and Wesley, which seems to be promising that Wesley is about to leave for Starfleet Academy. Unfortunately, I have inside knowledge that says that this is not his exit.
I mean, I figured by the end of the episode.
I don't know, the end of the episode's Picard saying, "You'll be missed." Even the ending to me said, "Oh, this is him probably, he's probably got a couple of episodes maybe, and then he's gone."
Well, oh, sure. Yeah, I meant, I thought you meant in general that this episode wasn't the exit. I didn't think you meant...
No, even just
Like,
ballpark now, the idea that this is building up to his exit in, like, I don't know, 1 or 2 episodes' time.
is it not?
That didn't sound like it from what Tara was saying to me. When I said, is this his exit? And she was just like,
Maybe
no.
she thought you meant this episode as well. Because when you said that sentence, that's what I thought you meant.
I doubt it. I don't know. But my enthusiasm for his exit has been greatly diminished. That's all I'll say.
I'm holding out hope still. I'm holding out hope there was a miscommunication and it's coming.
I mean, I'll find out pretty soon, so I'll know before next episode. But this episode's kind of a weird, frustrating episode in that there's things that it's trying to do that I appreciate. There's moments that it does that I appreciate. There's also moments that I can see what it's aiming for, but falls vastly short of the emotion that it's trying to hit. And there's even stuff that it sets up that I feel like it then just kind of pisses away for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why. My main example of that is that Wesley and this, because basically they're being taken on a shuttle to this mining planet because there's negotiations or something. Picard has to go speak to some miners, and miners being like coal well, not it may not be coal, but some mineral they're mining on a planet, as opposed to miners, as in children.
Oh, okay. I think this is one of those things where because I knew what you were supposed to be saying, I couldn't even grasp what else it could have been. I was like, well, what else do miners mine for?
Well, no, miners as in children, which, obviously it's spelt differently, but it sounds basically the same out of most people's mouths.
Sure.
Minor. And even then, I was really emphasizing there.
You were. I think context, I think you were okay. I don't know why Picard would go to speak to a bunch of children.
I don't know, he's trying to grow and learn and be more of a fatherly figure. I don't know.
Yes, but I don't know why he'd be doing negotiations with them.
Punishment. Starfleet know that he hates children, and they want to. It's a prank. They're like, hey, but there's this planet full of children. You're going to have to go and deal with them. But anyway, they're being taken down the shuttle by this character, this captain of this little shuttle, which Wesley even cracks a little joke about because he's like, captain of a shuttle.
Yeah, you're right about it, isn't he?
Yeah, Wesley's kind of unlikable for a lot of this episode, to be honest. Even when he's sticking up for Picard, he just sounds really whiny about it. He's like, why are you talking to Captain Picard that way? He's the one who's going to get us out of this. He comes across as really obnoxious. But anyway, the point I was getting at is that quite quickly, there's this sort of conflict between Wesley and this captain, particularly when they get stranded on the planet after the crash, and they're doing their Lawrence of Picardia through the desert. And
visually, I thought it was quite nice.
Oh yeah, they're in a real desert. This is not some backlot. This is like a real location they've got here for the vast vista of it. And right away we see that he's a bit more erratic. He doesn't think things through. This captain character, he wants to just brute force things. He's hiding the fact that he's got some. Well, at first you're thinking he's got some water. He's actually got booze, which is actually a terrible idea in the desert when you're possibly going to be dehydrating. Like Connor's the resident alcoholic here. Okay, so he obviously has a different opinion on the matter. But Picard gets injured, right? Picard has this moment where he pushes Wesley out of the way because some rocks are coming down in this cave. He pushes him out of the way, and you're like, no, Picard, let Wesley die instead of you. But he takes the rocks for Wesley, and he's injured and he's lying on his back, so he can't really be there to stop this third party, this other captain, from doing shady things. And he says to Wesley in a moment that, as he's lying there, he's like, hey, I can't help you now. You're going to have to stick up to him on your own. And I thought, okay, it's been kind of building to this because they've had some conflict, they've been kind of bickering. Even the episode started with Picard kind of giving Wesley some shit for being late to the bridge, and it was really all just set up to tell him that he'd been accepted at Starfleet Academy. But it was this idea that Wesley really needs to stick up for himself and actually kind of like take some, command, right, of the situation. And then the very next scene we really have of him and this other captain, the captain gets his way with this insane plan. We'll talk about what they're trying to do a bit later because we'll set that up as, but he actually just kind of dies almost immediately, and Wesley never actually has to stick up to him or stand up to him. He never actually. I thought the episode was setting up the idea that by the end of the episode he was going to either through a show of not necessarily force, but like through diplomacy and being smart, was going to show that he should be, the one in charge here, or show that he should be, or, at least stop him from being this erratic fool who was going to get them killed. And instead, the guy just got himself killed almost immediately. I was like, okay, I guess we're not doing anything with that.
Yeah, and also in the bit just before he gets killed, like, what he's doing, while it's a little bit reckless, it's not like, it's coming from nowhere. Wesley's there, really like doing the really going in on the data of the situation, right? Break it down. This is going to be the plan. And the other captain's like, we haven't got time for this. Your man's dying over there. Come on, let's. We haven't got this. We haven't got time to waste. It's not like he's just doing this for no reason, right? So it almost feels like Wesley shouldn't be standing up to him in this moment, and then it kind of kills him. So it kind of feels like, oh, I guess he should have done. It was really murky for me here.
Your line of thinking is really weird to me here, because I kind of disagree. Wesley annoys me a lot in this episode, but there's not a second in this scene, in this conflict of what they should do to try and get to this water fountain, which is protected by some magical science barrier that attacks whoever gets to it. Because they've already seen that it kind of lashes out when someone tries to fire a phaser at it, right? Because that happened earlier on to the phaser, because the guy tried to shoot it, and this is what ended up. That's what resulted in the rocks coming down and injuring Picard. So there's already been consequences for acting brashly. So we already know that it's dangerous to just start doing this. So even though he has an idea to, let's trick it by firing it with both phasers, but one set higher, so it will sort of like distract it while the other one does the work, or something, is effectively what he's saying. And Wesley, no, I can actually figure some of this out. Let me actually look at some of the data and sort of analyze it a little bit and figure out an actual plan based on, some science rather than just willy-nilly, let's do this first. And the reason why I'm saying I'm on Wesley's side here, at least in the logic of how to proceed here, is one, this guy's already proven to just do the first thing that comes to his mind, and without any, caution, without any care for what he's doing. He's basically a scientist from Prometheus. Let's just call him what he is. And Wesley's saying, no, let's actually at least spend 10 minutes thinking about this.
No, I get where you're coming from, and I get why Wesley's point of view makes sense here, because it does. But I think the other captain, he makes a valid point. Well, we don't know how long Picard will live for, without being unattended, without what we need.
The phrase you use is that he's doing this for a reason. I disagree that that's the real reason why he's doing it. He's doing this because he wants the war. He doesn't care about Picard.
I mean,
this is selfishness.
No, that is also true. But the reason he presents makes sense, I think, to me.
Now, by this point in the episode, he'd lost any credibility to be listened to. So, and we'd already seen what happened the last time he tried to mess with this without thinking.
We did, yeah.
So, I don't know. In this scene, I was completely like, no, Wesley should be standing up to him. And then lo and behold, the guy just gets himself killed. But this is the thing, it takes away the threat of this guy. I thought the point of this episode, because of what the setup was going to be, Wesley having to fight against this guy, because this guy was constantly going to do things or try and do something that was going to get them all killed or not save Picard or whatever. And then that threat just get taken away. And it was like, from that point on, all it really was Wesley figuring out how to get to the water on his own, which basically just amounted to him pressing some buttons and, just gobbledygook. And having an emotional scene where he's by Picard's side and tells him that his motivation for everything he does in life is to make Picard proud, which, I mean, it's not out of character for him. He's always respected Picard. He's always looked up to him.
Pretty terrible speech, though.
But it's a terrible speech, and the music really tries to hammer it home. The music tries so hard to make it be this emotional moment. And maybe it's just because we know that Picard's not dying here. And maybe it's because we just actively don't like Wesley that much. But I do think it's trying really hard to go for this emotional moment. I actually thought the moment here that did work a lot better, although admittedly partly because I was laughing at it, was because he actually brings up that episode where he was in the ship with Picard. You know, the episode where we found out that when it comes to the ladies, Wesley Crusher's in complete control. He actually brings up that trip and how he was scared to be there for 5 hours with Picard. And I thought, oh, that's actually a nice thing to admit to him. I was actually scared to spend that time with you, but by the end of that trip, I had this newfound respect because I kind of bonded with you in a way that I hadn't yet, because up until that point, I'd been this kid, and now I was like one of your officers or one of your ensigns. I think it was
because from what I recall of that episode, admittedly, it's been a while, it was mostly like from Picard's point of view of him being scared to have to spend all this time with annoying little shit Wesley. So this kind of that reversal almost was kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think we knew in the episode he was. I think there was at least one scene of him saying he was.
I mean, there probably was.
But no, like it felt like a nice callback, even though that wasn't the greatest episode. It felt like a nice callback to that moment. I always like when they bring the continuity into it, and it feels like the characters have been on this journey. One of the things I love about TV shows that run a good number of seasons like this is when Wesley said, these last 3 years I've learned a lot from you, and I've been through all these adventures. I'm like, no, it actually has been over 3 years. Like I like that real time kind of feel to it. I mean, obviously we've been watching it a bit quicker than that, but
not that much.
But you feel that time spent. And it feels like, so when they say it's been so long, it feels like you've spent that much time with the characters. And obviously not really, it's only 1 hour a week as opposed to, but it has that feeling. You build up that...
It's the pattern of it, or the routine that... It's something that we've spoken about before, and it's kind of why, us doing this, weekly, or, as much as we are, is a very different experience to... Well, we both have the option, to just sit here and binge through all of this in a matter of weeks, realistically, for the whole show if we really wanted to. But you don't get the same routine, that attachment, that bonding with characters by doing that. I think that is lost by binging a show, any show.
Yeah. So yeah, ultimately, like, I appreciate what they tried to do here, and because I like the ending. I like when when everyone else arrives. We'll talk about the B plot in a minute, but when everyone else arrives at the end, and Wesley has gotten water to Picard, he's been able to figure it out, and he wakes up and his mother's there saying, "Wesley, Wesley, wake up!" Blah blah, and they're carrying Picard out in a stretcher, and he's okay. He's gonna be okay. Crusher, Beverly Crusher's already seen to him. Yeah, she's got his vitals all good and all blah blah blah, and Picard sort of says, Mr. Crusher, and he comes up and he's like, "Why is your uniform so filthy?" And it's kind of a callback to the start of the episode when he was kind of like, riding him a little bit for being late, when he knows full well that Wesley should be putting away all the dangerous biohazard chemicals that he was playing with, because he should, you don't leave those things around, and yeah, that's completed the arc of the episode for Wesley, because Wesley, instead of trying to make an excuse, stands up to Picard and says, "You're not looking so hot yourself, sir." Like, or something to that effect. And it was a kind of that moment I thought worked quite well. It was a nice all-rounding kind of thing to the episode. It was just, there was a lot of weird steps in the middle that fell flat for me or tried too hard, and just not doing anything with that other character, just killing him off as quickly as they did, felt odd given how much time they spent building him up.
Like, weird choices. I think the trying too hard is where I really felt the problem, because this show has shown it can do heavy emotional beats and dramatic beats for characters quite effectively without overdoing it like this here. And I don't know quite why they felt the need to attempt it here.
Joe, maybe I'm being harsh on Will Wheaton here, right? But I wonder if the problem here is that this is essentially the Picard speech of the episode, but it's not Picard giving it. It's Wesley. The big emotional climatic speech. And it's not always Picard either. There's definitely episodes where Data will make a great speech and it'll be really profound. And in his own way, of course. Where he's talking about how he's analysing or feeling about... Not feeling, but you know what I mean. Like, or Riker might have something... to a lesser extent some of the other characters. It's rare the further you go down the sort of the cast list, but usually it's Picard, sometimes it's these other characters. Here, Wesley gets the big speech. His big speech when he's at Picard's side is the big speech of the episode. And it's supposed to be the linchpin that makes you feel the most things of the episode. And I don't think the dialogue is as good as normal. I don't think the acting, I don't think Wheaton's as good an actor as most of the other cast members.
Certainly
not,
he's better now.
Yeah, certainly not as Patrick Stewart, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty unfair comparison to most people on this show, to be fair there.
It is.
And he's obviously a lot younger than everyone else on the show. So, I tend to cut him some slack in the acting department, as I do with most teenage actors.
But I wonder if that's why the music's trying so hard to make up for it. Like, I wonder if that's...
they saw this in the edit and were looking at it and going, this isn't working. We need to make this point clear. And
it's not that music obviously doesn't accompany Picard's speeches, because it does. It absolutely does. But it doesn't feel as... There was a lot more brass in this. There was a lot more, like... I don't know. I really felt like it was trying really hard to make me care about the moment. So that's a shame. The B plot is basically... I actually had a logical issue with part of this. So basically, there's a planet, a peaceful planet, that thinks they're under attack from some ship that's entered their orbit. And when the Enterprise gets there, it turns out it's actually just basically a disposal ship that's full of radioactive material that's been drifting through space.
Yeah, basically, instead of dumping it off to China like we do, they went, space.
Sure. And there's, okay, we have to get rid of this. We can't go too close to it, though, because the radiation will affect the ship. Sure, whatever. So they come up with all these complex ideas of, like, they're going to take it to a sun and dispose of it, and they have to go through this asteroid belt. There's a lot of talk. Every time we cut back to them, there's a lot of talk of, okay, we're trying to keep the tractor beam on it as we, push it through or pull it through the line of sight to get to the sun. And I couldn't help but feel that my admittedly rather basic understanding of physics, but in space, once you've set something on a path with some momentum, it just keeps going.
It does, yes. I'm wondering if they were thinking maybe the asteroids would knock it off.
And they probably would, but one of the things they keep saying, though, is that they're at risk because they're so close to it with the beam, and I'm like, why don't you get it shoved and then pull back, follow it, so once it gets to the asteroid, you can
Yeah. I mean, my question as well is, okay, so the closest sun is there, and we're gonna go through this asteroid belt. Can I just go around? Take some time.
Well, I mean, they're on a time crunch because they know they have to go try and look for Picard later, and they have to, Riker has to make the choice.
Yet?
They know that very early. It's quite early on, yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm just misremembering when that information occurs.
Because when Riker gets told, and because I've not even started moving it yet, and he's like, "No, we're in an emergency situation. We'll turn back and look when we can, but right now we have to deal with this." Or how about? I mean, obviously it's at risk to the planet just now, but if they even just push it far away enough from the planet so it's not killing the planet for a while.
Yeah, if I recall, it's basically this has been floating through space for God knows how long, and it happened to get caught in the planet's gravity, which sucked it into orbit, and essentially, right?
Yeah,
and that's what's getting them. If you just pull it out of orbit, put it in a direction to, okay, there's a lot of empty space. It'll take ages to hit anything else. We'll go grab Picard, and then we'll come back and deal with it then.
Yeah, I felt there was a lot of reasons why they didn't have to treat this like what it was. Like you say, just move it away from the planet for now. Come back and dispose of it after. When it's just it's far away from it. You don't even have to move it that far, presumably. Like surely you could just far enough away that it's not going to get sucked back into orbit.
Yeah,
that'll do.
That's what I'd have thought.
And alternatively, when they're talking about, we have to stay close to it, and the radiation on the ship's reaching, dangerous levels, I'm like, just push it with the tractor beam, pull back, let it drift for a bit.
Yeah.
There's options here. There's options.
Just on a more thematic point, less on the actual logistics of the thing.
Yes.
I feel like this plot was completely wasted. The point of this, the idea of someone just offloaded their trash and it became someone else's problem. That's like a Star Trek episode. That's what that should be an episode at some point. And I feel like we just wasted that on this. That did absolutely nothing with that concept once it was established.
I feel like there wasn't even much of an ending to it. It was just kind of Like, oh, it's time for them to turn back now, so they've succeeded.
Pretty much.
And
There was a whole big
likewise,
time crunch as to, oh, it's going to kill us,
yeah,
and then they didn't.
yeah. It felt very anticlimactic, as did Wesley figuring out the puzzle of getting to the water. I felt like that was just basically him saying, I think I've almost figured it out. Do. Oh, I figured it out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like leaps here in this episode where it's like, oh, this is what we're gonna do, and it sets up these problems, and and in its mind are quite complex problems that it has to solve, but it's not interested in showing us how they're solved.
And
It's don't worry about it. It's done.
it's not that the water problems like it's not like that's important to the episode in terms of what it is, but I think the problem is that the whole point of this is to show that Wesley's quite capable, and you've already taken away the the antagonist, if you will, the rival that he has to deal with.
Yeah.
So the way to show us be competent is to see him solve this in a way that we can understand that's quite smart. But we don't. We get him going, do. Oh, it's solved. There's nothing for us to latch on to. Is what he did there was quite smart or impressive. It's all just kind of and magically he's done it now. It's kind of so. Yeah, there's not really much to take from those elements of the episode. I'll laugh early on actually, because see when they find out on the ship that the shuttle didn't make it to the moon or the planet, and they don't know where they are. At the end of the scene, because Riker makes this choice to they have to deal with this first. The camera does this thing where it sweeps over to Beverly Crusher, right, and she looks really concerned. And in my head, I went, "Oh yeah, she's upset because Picard's kind of like a love interest, and she's really scared about that." And then like 2 seconds later, I went, "Oh yeah, and her son's there too."
I actually really didn't like that shot. I thought it was really overdramatic, and that was before most of the overdramatic stuff in the episode, so I kind of let it slide. But thinking back on it in hindsight, it's like, okay, it's another instance of it. I mean, this episode's a little bit over directed.
Because it was even before all this, I was kind of excited at the idea of them being trapped in a desert. I thought it was going to be more about survival, and it kind of was to an extent, but it wasn't
for
quite
like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the survival episode that I thought. Because when he makes an arrow so that anyone who the away team, if they come down, they'll see that they went in this direction. I was okay, that's quite smart. I like these details. I like this thought process, and it was making me think of that Mads Mikkelsen film I watched a few months ago, in the Arctic.
Oh yes, I think it just called Arctic.
I think it was called Arctic. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. But he did
that movie.
There were similar things in that movie that he did, like little smart things, just in case someone finds his his crashed helicopter or plane, whatever it was. So. I mean, it wasn't a terrible watch though. I wasn't like miserable as I was watching. There was things to like, there was ideas to like, there was moments to like, but overall a bit lacking in execution. Could have been a bit better written.
But yeah, I mean that comes down to all of it. Every department could have been a bit better written. Could have been a bit better directed. Could have been a bit better acted. All round, just little bits. Everything could have just been improved. But nothing was like terrible on its own.
Yep. That pretty much sums it up. I mean, the ensign who was next to Data on the bridge actually got named. I didn't catch it, but Riker actually called her by name at one point. I was like, oh, someone got a name.
I didn't notice. I mean, maybe I didn't notice that they didn't have a name before.
That's more than what most background characters on this show in the bridge get. Which actually made me because they saw. I felt like I noticed her more because of that, and I started paying attention not just to her but the people in the background. And I just maybe this was a sign that the plot wasn't that interesting to me, but I was paying attention to the extras on the bridge, and I was like, man, like I know it seems easy to just pretend you're doing stuff at a computer, but like I wonder like how the extras sort of think about how often they should like do certain movements, like. Because like her specifically at the front, she's sort of like looking down and looking back up as if she's like navigating, and she's looking at it. I was like how often do you do it? Because if you do it too often, it'll look maybe kind of silly that you're kind of.
I assume that's something that the director has told them, and if it's someone who's recurring in that position, okay, a couple of times, they know what they're doing.
Well, I wonder if it's less the director and more that like for an ongoing series like this, they literally have like a little
style guide.
Yeah, let's do a style guide, orientation like day where okay, this season's extras have all assembled, so we're going to take them for like a couple of hours and say, okay, here's the rules, here's what you do on set when you're at the computers. Yeah. Maybe a little handbook, something. I don't know. I got me thinking. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's true for us to be editing, but I think in this because there's so many like extras at all times on the bridge, just at computers doing,
just standing there tapping screens.
Yeah, looking busy, which I think. Every so often someone will point out, and you don't always notice it because you're focused on the main actors, you're focused on the main things, but every so often someone will point out like a background extra in a scene in a movie who's actually a little bit weird or a little bit off and not doing what they're supposed to be. A famous one is there's a shot in the trailer for Dunkirk where one of the soldiers is like all the heads are going down because there's like a plane going overhead, but there's this one, if you're paying attention to him, he's just kind of like, oh yeah, I suppose I'll put my head down. Like it's just very like.
You know what the thing is?
Yeah.
I believe there was at least one soldier doing that in reality.
It looks weird in the tone of the scene.
No, I buy that, and it was clearly a mistake. But I won't defend this movie that often. Yeah. I believe there was a soldier that did that.
All right, okay.
That was a dopey one.
Anyway, so what's coming up next time then? We got an episode called The Loss, and oh dear. As an unknown force drags the Enterprise, Deanna Troi struggles with the loss of her powers.
Oh, great. She becomes even less useful. I don't know why it's such a struggle. They've been useful like 4 times in the whole show so far. So, I mean, I'm sure she'll manage.
Yeah, this is like losing your sense of smell. It's a little bit annoying, but like, like,
it's not the worst sense to lose.
Yeah. I'll survive. I'll get used to it. All right, well, that's the loss. That's upset. Yeah, you can like, clean the litter trays would be much easier. No sense of smell. Yeah, I mean, sure, the nice smells will be missed, but there's a lot of bad smells that you won't have to deal with anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's next time. That's the loss. So let us know what you thought of this one, though, in the comments. Like and subscribe. Like is super important on YouTube. Helps us out. Gets us on the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm. All the elves in the algorithm all doing the buttons like in the Star Trek extras doing.
That is about as useful, to be honest.
I just imagine all elves in white and red uniforms.
Why? Is that just because it's YouTube colors?
YouTube colors, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. White with red trim, but with a red hat. All.
That's very blinding. If you looked at an army of those. Wait, hang on. What kind of elves are we talking about? We're talking like 2-foot Christmas elves. We're talking like fantasy elves. Describe.
2-foot Christmas elves, although maybe with some fantasy stylings in the face. So they've got the
long faces, pointy ears.
Pointy ears for sure. And I'm imagining a lot of pneumatic tubes and stuff where they're like, okay, this has X number of likes and comments because in that tube, whoosh.
I love that. Even YouTube, it's all manual. It's all scrolls in tubes.
Yes, they claim it's all automatic, but it's not. It's all pneumatic tubes and elves.
I buy it.
I don't know, I'm reminded of that thing they did for April Fools like 5 years ago, where there's like YouTube now is a physical delivery service, and there was like a little trailer they made of like people delivering YouTube videos, and it was like 10,000 boxes a day because that's how much content is uploaded to YouTube.
It was really just a bragging video, wasn't it?
I guess it was in hindsight, but it was funny. It was cute. Yeah. All right, there you go. Also get us on Patreon, of course, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. We're the only elves with the tubes that are us. So, Patreon.
As far as we know.
Yes. But so go and have a look and get some bonus goodies for a little bit of money. But that's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, guys. And when it comes to the ladies, Wesley Crusher is in complete control.